What's up, fam? Agent O here with another action figure review, and today I have the S.H.Figuarts Avengers Age of Ultron Iron Man Mark 45 figure, and man, that's a really long ass title. But anyway, I will say that after getting this figure and messing around with him, I think this is probably my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Iron Man to date. I really like how this is kind of like an ergonomic, like sleek, a bit more organic looking version of Iron Man than we've gotten before in the past. I like how it just reminds me more of how Iron Man looks in the comics. You know, in the comics, sometimes instead of drawing actual armor, they'll just draw the muscles on the human body and make it look like it's armor. And this kind of does that. It kind of harkens back to that. Like if you look at his arms are shaped more like how you would see a comic book artist draw their arms. You've got the, you know, very stylized looking deltoid. You've got your biceps and triceps. The way they look more smoother and less angular than you've seen in the past. And if you look really close at the forearms, you'll see the line work and the paneling that they did. It looks more like, if you look up like a human anatomy picture, if you look up a picture of human anatomy, the way everything's angled and drawn on this forearm, it looks more like forearm muscles. That's what it reminds me of anyway. Even the way you have this molded crease right here in the very middle where the light's bouncing off of it, like that's the kind of crease, that's the kind of, like for somebody who has toned arms, like you'll see that kind of crease in the musculature. You'll see that indentation. So, you know, they pulled that off quite nicely in the design of the armor, and Bandai S.H.Figuarts, they've represented that quite nicely. You know, I think this is about as, once again, this is about as comic book movie accurate as you're going to get with a figure of this size. I mean, there's just tons of detail all over this guy's body. I mean, he's detailed from the top of his head to the bottoms of his feet. You know, they just did a really good job of capturing every single tiny bit of detail that could be put onto this figure. You know, I mean, it, as far as I can tell, it's pretty accurate. Moving on from the other aesthetics, I've always loved the deep red metallic paint that they use on these Iron Man toys. This one's no different. Looks really good. It looks like they used a darker, slightly more chromatic gold. That's what it looks like to me anyway, but I can tell it's definitely darker. His eyes, instead of it being white, get my camera to focus, the eyes are a darker blue, like a metallic blue, and I think that works better than just making them white. In this case, for the figure, it looks okay on screen, on the movie screen, but as far as the figure goes, I think this looks pretty good. And you know, the silver white, you know, also looks pretty nice too. I mean, I have no problems with this figure, with the paint scheme and the paint apps whatsoever. I think this guy looks really good, and you know, there's no slop. You know, well, no, I take that back. There's a little bit of slop, and it's on his chest. I have no idea why my camera just will not focus right now, but it's on his chest, and if I can get my camera to focus, there we go. It's like right there at the bottom. You can kind of see where the light's hitting it and causing that reflection. You can see how it's not smooth right there. It's like after the paint got applied, it's like it touched something just before it dried, and that's what you're left with, this weird looking blemish. You can't see it from far away. When you get up close, you can definitely see it. It's too bad, and that's This is like the first Figuarts toy that I've ever gotten that had that issue, that had a paint app issue like that on there. And even still, with that one blemish, this is still a better paint job than an S.H. Figuart. I'm sorry, than a Hasbro Marvel Legends. That's what I meant to say. This is still a better paint job than a Marvel Legends. I mean, it's just leaps and bounds better, even with that little blemish right there. Leaps and bounds better than a Hasbro. Hasbro needs to step their game up when it comes to painting their figures. I mean, Hasbro Legends don't have half as many paint apps as this guy does, and they still suck compared to this. So this is really good. And I've got no other complaints with the way he looks. Now moving on to the articulation, his head is on a ball joint, so you can move left to right, you can turn his head all the way around. He can look back, he can look up, he can look down. The neck is also on a ball joint, so you can tilt the head and get way more articulation. You can go forward, you can go back even farther, just a little bit farther. You can't really go back on the neck that far, but the ball joint helps make up for that. It's on a double ball joint, the head's on a double ball joint, should have mentioned that. The shoulders, the shoulder pads can flip up so that they don't get in the way of the armor, and it's on kind of like a swivel joint, the shoulder is. And the shoulder is connected to, it's not a butterfly joint, it's just a ball socket joint. It's connected on a ball socket. And the weird thing about this figure that I have not seen on other S.H. Figuarts is that you can actually pull this out and it kind of snaps into place. So you can get a bit more range of motion out of this guy. And then you can kind of just push it back in if you don't need it. But thought that was kind of interesting that the shoulder pops out like that. Like I said, this is the first Figuart that I've gotten that it does that. But there's also a bicep swivel, and the elbows are, they're double jointed elbows, so you got about that much range of motion on it. You can get a pretty good, it's pretty good. It's as much as you're ever going to need. The hands are on a fixed ball joint, and you can get full rotation, whatever you need out of that. The torso is kind of broken up into 3 separate pieces. You have your upper, you have your mid, and then you have the sides. You can kind of see how it's, you can see it, definitely see it on the back, how everything's broken up. And you can go back that far, you can go forward. It's not too extreme. The sculpt of the armor kind of gets in the way. His upper torso rotates, and that's about as much as you're gonna get. You can't get much more than that. Not sure. I don't think it's due to the sculpt. I think it's just due to the way they set up the articulation to go. But for some reason, he has no waist articulation. That's a first that I've ever seen on a Figuart out of the ones that I own anyway. And even on the older Iron Man figures, like the Mark 6, I've got upper torso and I've got waist articulation. So I don't know why they didn't do that on this guy. It's not like they couldn't have done it. I just don't know why they didn't do it. So there is that limitation in the articulation, which, I mean, you can still get the poses you need out of this guy, but I just wish there was just more torso articulation, so you can get a few more, poses out of this guy, a few more natural looking poses. But moving on to the lower half of his body, the legs are on a kind of like a ball swivel, so you can get up. It can get up about that high. They're on a ball joint, and you can go back about that far. You can basically do the splits. Once you pull that swivel joint down, I mean, he can do the splits. no problem. And then you also have your thigh swivel, which you can't get that far in. You can't rotate it that far inward because of the sculpt, but you can rotate it pretty far, you know, outward. And the thigh swivel is on a ball joint, so you also can get this weird tilt, or you can get this weird articulation out of it if you need it for, you know, I don't know what pose you need it for, but it is there. I'm not sure why it's there or why it's even necessary, but you have it if you need it. The knees, bend at the knee is really good. So is the bend at the ankle articulation. You've got a little bit of a rocker. It's not a whole lot, surprisingly. But you know, you don't really need it. You don't really need a whole lot of articulation at the ankle. This this armor piece flips so you can tilt the feet in, and it points out, the feet point about that far. And you can tilt this also up so you can bend the toe, and the toe bends about that much. Yeah, you can't get any more bend than that. And I want to say the feet are die cast. I'm not sure, but I think they are. And because I know some figure art toys are die cast. The feet are made out of die cast metal, and this one might be. I'm almost positive they're die cast, but I can't tell because of the paint. The paint, everything feels like, I can tell this is definitely plastic because of how light it is. But when I touch the feet, they feel like metal, but I'm not too sure. I'll have to check I'll have to check some notes or something on what the figure is made out of, what all components the figure is made out of, before I can confirm that it's die cast. But I'm positive it's die cast. But you know, that's pretty much it for the figure itself. One other thing I do want to point out though is I don't like this gap right here at the base of the neck, where the neck goes into the chest. I don't know why that's there. I don't know why they couldn't have just flared out the base of the neck a bit more, so that to kind of cover up all that space. But it's there, and it is a bit distracting, more so than on the Incredible Hulk figure that they did, with all the gaps that were on that figure. For some reason I can forgive that figure for its gaps, but I can't forgive them for this gap for some reason. I don't like it. I'm sorry, that's just me. Other people might be okay with it, but I just don't like that gap on this guy. But that's about it for the look of this figure, and you know, the articulation and everything. Of course, you know, as far as accessories goes, he comes with, you know, interchangeable hands, and the hands look really good. They're sculpted quite nicely, and they're painted pretty nicely. But my one gripe is that the hands, where you can see the repulsor area on the palm, they're not painted in like a silver. They're just red like the rest of the figure, and I don't know why they painted it like that. It's like they got lazy or something. Or maybe this could just be my particular figure. Maybe my particular figure didn't come with the repulsors painted in, because my previous Iron Man figures from Figuarts all come with the repulsors painted. He also comes with the repulsor blast effects, and he has the sculpted hands, the open hands with the peg hole, so you can attach the repulsor blast effect pieces on. And you know, that's pretty standard for as to what you would get with any Iron Man figure that is not done by Hasbro. You'll get these extra attachments and effect pieces, and he has the effect pieces for the foot rockets. They'll attach like so, and You know, so there's those. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, it's kind of like I mean, we're used to getting Iron Man figures, and they all kind of come with the same stuff. You know, changeable hands and repulsor and rocket effects. And that's all I think you really need with an Iron Man figure. I can't really think of, unless it's a special Iron Man that does a lot of some special stuff that the standard Iron Man suit doesn't do. But other than that, I mean, this is another solid release from Figuarts. I wouldn't pay, once again, I wouldn't pay too much for this guy. I wouldn't pay more than the MSRP for these figures. If you're paying if you're buying them off a Big Bad Toy Store, you're paying too much. I would rather buy it from Japan and pay the shipping costs than to pay the inflated price that you pay for at Big Bad and then pay for shipping on top of it. So that's just me. Like I said, I would not pay too much for this figure. I would pay just what it's advertised for and not pay the markups. And that's pretty much gonna do it. I've got nothing else to add to this toy and about this toy, and I'll just catch you guys on the next action figure review. I'm Agent O and I'm out. Peace.